This is Todd. He is a patient of ours and wanted to get on and just talk a little bit about his story and what had compelled him to come in and pursue the world of functional medicine. And so I'm going to let him take the floor here on a couple of those things. Tell us a little bit about why he came in, what his goals were out of that, and what he began to experience and what you kind of accomplished through the world of functional medicine. And I have to say this, it really wasn't me. Todd was and continues to be an amazing patient with compliance and doing the things that were asked of him, whether it was diet or supplements or anything else. So Todd did the work. It wasn't me. He did the work. But I'll let him tell a little bit about his story and what he experienced. So.
Okay. Well, thanks, Kevin. So I have been training for endurance sports for several years, and I guess at the time I was doing a lot of training, but I was dealing with some nagging injuries. I wanted to lose weight, but I wasn't being very successful in losing any weight. I was on a couple prescription medicines, and so as I mentioned to you at the time, I wanted to press the reset button and try something different and see what it could really feel like to feel good. And as you mentioned, I was healthy coming into it. I didn't have any significant problems. I hadn't had any significant injuries, but just a lot of nagging things. And so I think to me, the biggest part of the change was, it was an education for me of how what you put in your body can really affect you, and not necessarily with a lot of large symptoms, but just things that are inflammatory to your body, and understanding how the gut affects everything in your body, and how really good gut health is important, and how just eating the right things can make a huge difference. As you mentioned, there were some changes in my diet, some additional supplements, and I think the changes were pretty impressive at the start. I lost a lot of weight that I didn't even expect to lose.
I'm going to say this. Todd didn't have like a ton of weight to lose. He just toned up. He was already an endurance athlete doing Ironman triathlons. Like, Todd's in shape, but when he had come in, it was all about, like he said, there were some nagging things and just wanted to be better. Thought he could be better. Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, he did lose some weight.
Yeah. So, well, just to put some numbers around that, my body fat went from about 18% to 12%.
Awesome.
So it was a pretty significant change. But I think, like, the other side of it was, like, once I started changing my diet and understanding, it was really fairly simple things, like, getting the sugar out of your system and having just not avoiding carbohydrates, but having the right carbohydrates.
Sure.
It's eating, understanding the difference between pastured foods versus commercially produced foods. Yeah. And I think me knowing how those affect me made it much easier for me to accept that. And they taste a lot better, by the way.
For sure.
So it's worth the price. And so I felt good about a lot of the changes I made because I'm helping local farmers. I'm eating better food. Yeah. I'm feeling good about what I eat. I'm having great conversations with my daughter and my niece, who are also very interested in these things. And performance-wise, all I can say is I had my 3 best half Ironmans in the past year. I PR'd my marathon by 10 minutes. Those results have just been outstanding.
Well, your half Ironman that you had done shortly afterwards, I think it was a half, right? I believe. Mm-hmm. Like, your performance on that race just sticks out in my mind significantly for what the PR was on that.
Sure. So it was it was about a 45-minute PR. And as I mentioned to you, the thing that felt very different is I felt completely in control the entire time. It's not an easy thing to do, but I felt in control the entire time. I didn't feel like I was struggling at ever. I felt like the pace I was running and biking and swimming was right the whole time.
One thing that sticks out that you had shared with me as well was like on those transitions, you didn't feel like you had mental errors in that race. It felt like things were just really operating well, things were in control, and you weren't having any mental mistakes, especially through those transitions that you maybe had experienced in some prior races.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. As I was coming out of the swim into T1, I was already thinking about, as I was running up, I was thinking about all the things I needed to do in the order I needed to do them. So it was just a very effective and efficient transition, the same with T2. And I'll say, even though the races I ran last year, about a year into this, the times weren't overall as faster. It was on very different courses and very different expectations. So I think even those were even better.
Okay.
So a non-wetsuit lake swim as opposed to a wetsuit current aided swim.
Yeah.
So I feel like I've sustained a lot of those capabilities and performance.
That's awesome. What's your recovery been like?
It's been really good. My recovery, I did another Ironman last September. It was very difficult, got very warm. I was hurting, but I'm able to get through the first couple days of those races and resume a level of training fairly quickly, pain-free. As I mentioned, I just did a marathon last week. My friends were still complaining a week later. I was pretty much good to go in about 3 days.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the combination of eating the right foods, doing the right exercises, getting enough rest really has made a big difference for me.
That's fantastic. So you've seen a lot of things change. Are you still on the same meds, or are you still doing those things?
No, I switched doctors to someone who, is an MD, but also takes a more holistic approach to things, based on what we were able to measure in terms of blood work and blood pressure. I haven't been taking those medications, so I'm completely medication free now.
That's phenomenal. That doesn't really happen too often for people. So,
well, again, I think understanding the correlation between cholesterol and inflammatory foods, and you get the inflammatory foods out of your system, your cholesterol goes down.
Sure.
And you eat better foods, things like pastured meats,
it's going to change how your body handles it.
And that was another big thing. It's like fat is not the enemy. The right fat is good for you and helps you.
Yeah.
So I think understanding those things really goes a long way. And I certainly have started to evangelize those things to my friends as well.
I know you have. Because you also saw that even with races, with doing like gels and some of how you're refueling during those endurance events. Like when you were eating better, your need for some of those sources and even what those sources were during the course of a race changed some, didn't they?
Quite a bit, yeah. I found that especially with workouts, I required a lot less carbohydrate supplementation. Even during races, I probably cut back between 25 and 40% of what I've taken and not felt any adverse effect because of it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I think as Todd has shared here, pretty cool story about somebody who, you know, I don't oftentimes have someone come in who's like, you know, I'm really doing pretty well. I just want to be better. Might have a couple nagging things, but as a whole, healthy guy. You're doing Ironman races, full Ironman. Like, not a whole lot of guys are doing that at that point. And so I think it's awesome. And I frankly want more patients to be ready to dive in and handle some of these sorts of things before issues do come up. And to be able to see somebody in your state just optimize performance, optimize wellness, and then have sustained changes as a result of it is just really, really cool. So once again, kudos to you because you did all the hard work, and it's fun to watch those sustained changes. So,
yeah, it's been great experience.
Yeah, well, thanks everybody, and hope Todd's story is compelling to you as well.